Saint Gora Kumbhar, a pottery of devotion and Abhangs. Saint Gora Kumbhar or Goroba was a potter by profession and used to make his living by making and selling toys. A great devotee of Vitthal, he would always think about Vitthal and perform each chore. His heart was full of love for Panduranga. Goroba would be chanting and singing the praise of God even while stamping and pounding the clay for making toys. He would be so immersed in his devotion that he used to forget his surroundings and transcend to a different world while thinking of God. He used to make clay potteries like replicas of Vitthal, Rukmini, Rama, Krishna. His oneness with God reflected in his work as he would only make potteries that reminded him of God. His wife was equally devoted and they had a son by name Hari. One day the wife was feeding Hari and telling him stories. However, Hari refused to eat as there was no ghee in it. Then she left him down and gave him the push cart and went out to get some ghee. Goroba was at that time stamping and pounding clay in the pit. There were dark clouds in the sky and a crow flew by. Hari, on seeing this, showed it to Goroba. The sight of the dark clouds filled his heart with thoughts of Vitthal and he started singing about him and soon transcended into a different state as usual. He was chanting Vitthal, Vitthal and dancing in the pit with his arms up. In few moments, rain started pouring in and the kid came running to Goroba asking him to carry him as he was afraid of the thunders. As Hari came to his dad, he fell into the clay pit and Goroba, without noticing him, continued his dancing and stamping and pounding the clay while Hari was stuck in the pit. Hari got deep into the pit because of Goroba's stamping and pounding and died. His wife returned back and asked Goroba where Hari was. Goroba was still chanting and dancing Vitthal, Vitthal, and his wife had to stop him and then ask him what happened to Hari. Goroba then replied to her saying Hari is everywhere. He was still in a different state of mind and thought that she was asking about God. She then told him that she was asking about the son Hari and not the Almighty Hari. Only then he came back to normalcy and said that he was playing here a while ago. He then searched everywhere and found his little leg sticking out of the clay pit. Seeing this, he removed the kid from the pit and realized that he was dead. His wife started crying and shouting at him and also blamed him for the death of her son. Needless to say, his wife, along with the entire village, turned against Gora for this heinous act. How can a father be so irresponsible that he couldn't even feel one's own son under his feet? Or did he do it for some black magic? Vitthal giveth and Vitthal taketh. After the death of his son, Gora lost all the goodwill that Vitthal had bestowed upon him, and Gora lost all the will to live the life of a householder. But even during such trying times when his faith was questioned by everyone, including a distraught, heartbroken wife, Gora's faith was only strengthened by his misfortune. He now spent all of his time in the bhakti of Vitthal, seeking forgiveness again and again and again. Goroba told his wife that Vitthal had given them a son and now that he wanted him back and so he had taken him back. He also said that even though he had lived only for a few years, he had chanted and sang the name of God and so he will attain moksha and asked her not to worry. His wife was now furious and said that she had lost her son only because of Vitthal and that she would break the Vitthal statue at home and went to take the eggs. As soon as Goroba heard this, he started chasing his wife with the eggs. When she saw this, she shouted that promise on Vitthal, do not touch me. On hearing this, Goroba put the eggs down and said that he would not touch her anymore. They then arranged for the cremation of Hari and finished the other rituals. A year passed by and still Goroba would not touch his wife due to the promise she made and Vitthal. His wife was very sad with the demise of her kid and wanted to have another kid, but now that was not possible because of the promise on Vitthal. His wife now knew that there was no way she would have a kid and then decided that get her sister married to Goroba in order to have a kid at home. She then made arrangements for the same and the marriage took place in her parents' house. When Goroba was living after the marriage with both his wives, their father, who knew nothing about the promise, came to Goroba and said that he should treat his second wife the same way he treats his first wife. Goroba was hesitant as he heard this, and seeing his hesitation, his father-in-law said, "Promise on Vitthal, you should treat second wife the way you treat first wife." Listening to this, he said Goroba agreed and returned home. Goroba then started treating both equally and wouldn't touch any of them. Days passed by, and one day the sisters discussed within themselves and went into his bedroom while he was asleep. They sat on either side and touched his hands. He immediately woke up and asked his first wife how she could touch him after having put a promise on Vitthal. He then wanted to punish himself for this deed and got his both hands cut in a saw that is used to cut trees. Goroba now could not do any work, and so both wives would make some pottery, sell them, and manage to get just enough money for them to eat. Goroba had earlier taken some loans, and now all of them wanted him to pay it back as they knew he could not make toys anymore. They got his house and other properties to be auctioned to recover their money. During the auction, a young boy came there and bought Goroba's house, cattle, and vessels. The officials then said that the money they got from the sale of these properties was just enough to close the loan and that there was nothing left to give him. Goroba was happy that he had now cleared his debts. His first wife now asked Goroba what they would do now. He then told her that we will go to Pandurpur and Vitthal will take care of us. Even today, in places like Pandurpur, free food is provided to the poor and needy. As they started from the house, the young boy who took this property in the auction came to them, prostrated to them, and said, "Father and mother, you should not leave now." They were surprised at this and asked him why he was saying so and who he was. He then told Goroba that he is also a potter and that his name was Ranjan, and he has seen him in the market where he used to sell toys. He also said that he bought this house in the auction only for him, as he knew that his house was being auctioned and that he didn't want him to suffer. Goroba was moved and said this is also Vithal's wish and went back inside the house. Ranjan and his wife Rukmabai also stayed with them as Goroba's son and daughter-in-law. From then on, Goroba would sit and perform his chanting and singing happily, and Ranjan would take care of making the toys and Rukmabai would help Goroba's wives on the household activities. Seeing Ranjan doing all the work by himself, Goroba offered to help Ranjan in stamping and pounding the clay as his legs were fine. Ranjan then said that if there is something he wants from Goroba, it listening to those chantings and bhajans. Goroba then started singing and Ranjan kept his hands in his hips and started stamping and pounding the clay. On seeing this, Goroba suddenly stopped and asked Ranjan if he was really Ranjan or his Panduranga. Ranjan then told him that he sees everyone as Pandurang, and that is why he is thinking like this and that he was Ranjan only. Now that Vitthal and Rukmani were here in Goroba's house, saints like Namdev and others in Pandurang who used to speak to Vitthal realized that Vithoba was not in the temple for quite some time now. A group of saints and sadhus headed by Namdev started searching village by village, singing his praise. These groups of sadhus were today reaching the village where Goroba lived. The village people had prepared for the welcome with banners and flags. Seeing this, Goroba asked what was happening and they told him that a group of sadhus from Pandurpur along with Namdev were coming here. Hearing this, Goroba was elated and started walking towards the group of sadhus. Nama and Goroba knew each other well as they had earlier met in the Vitthal Rukmini temple several times during Ekadashi. Both of them did the namaskars to each other and the bhajans continued. As soon as Nama saw him, he understood that Vithoba was definitely with him. After the bhajans, Nama asked him where was Ranjan. Goroba thought he was asking about the Ranjan at home and told him that he is at home. Hearing this, Nama ran to Goroba's house, but Vitthal and Rakumai had disappeared from them already. Goroba then came running behind him and called Ranjan. He then asked his wife as where Ranjan was and both started shouting Ranga Ranga. Nama then told him that it was Vitthal and Rukmani who had come to his house and served him like his son. Listening to this, Goroba felt bad that he could not recognize him when he was here and that he had committed a sin by asking Vithoba to do all household work. He then started crying and longing for Vitthal. Nama then consoled him and asked Goroba to come to Pandurang along with his family to see Vitthal. Once they reached Pandurang, they sat down at Vitthal Rukmani temple for singing the praise of God. The tradition in this temple is that one of the main bhakta would distribute jalras to all the bhaktas present there. Namdev was distributing the jalras, and when he came to Goroba, he tried to give one to him too. As soon as he did this, Goroba's hands came back like how a leaf springs up from a tree. His wife was excited to see this, and she ran to Vitthal, held his feet, and asked him to give her back her son Hari. She then started telling him that if you can give back hands to your bhakta, why can't you give me back my son, Hari? She also asked him that during Krishna avatar, he gave life to his guru's son who died 12 years earlier. And if you could do that, then why wouldn't you do it now for your bhakta? Lot of bhaktas had gathered there to see this, and suddenly there was a child crying for his mother. They asked him who he was, and when Goroba's wife saw him, she realized that it was her son Hari. She ran and embraced him and thanked Vitthal for giving Hari back to her. They then returned back to their village happily. Goroba's unshakable faith in Vitthal helped him and his family to overcome every obstacle on their way. In the most difficult times, too, he did not lose his integrity. He did not flatter from his path that was led by his principles of devotion. Closely looking at lives of such legends not just helps directing our inner conscience, but also profoundly tells us that it was the same story of human emotions and turmoils hundreds of years ago and even today. Our lives too are full of tests and trials, and it is in such moments of despair we need to keep our faith, values, and devotion intact. In some or the other way, God will Himself come to help us in disguise. Only if we have faith in His words and trust in His actions, we can identify His divine intervention. So don't let your faith ever die. In your darkest hour too, He is with you.